Oi, cunts! Billy Butcher here, bringing you a recap of me show, The Boys. It's the final season, so he's pulling out all the stops. I got me London Pride, Amber Ale, because yours truly is the pride of London love. Couple of hours of Compound V here in my pocket, and I'm ready to start a little chin wag about the first two episodes of my show, The Boys, season 5. But first, here's my mate, Martin Cooke, with a little reminder. I'm a running fine Zack, but Martin, where we last leave me and the rest of the boys and anti-heroes when we last saw them 2 years ago.
All right, so at the end of season four, Homelander, following a plan by Sister Sage, had been launching a coup against the government, trying to remove the president. Butcher finally gave in to his darker instincts after Ryan, Homelander's son, had killed Grace and disappeared. So Butcher accepted the V that was coursing through his veins to become a soup himself. And the first thing he does with it is kill Victoria Newman, who had been set to become the new president under Homelander's plan. But that didn't matter to Sage because the new president swears allegiance to Homelander anyway. Kimiko and Frenchie finally got together. MM convinced A Train to finally begin helping their side on a more permanent basis. Ashley injected herself with V to because she was scared that she was going to be killed. And then at the very end, we're left with the boys fleeing Homelander's new order, only for Huey, Frenchie, and MM to all get caught. Only Starlight and Butcher managed to escape. Um, Also, without going into too many spoilers, Gen V is a show that's been adjacent, and they've had a season two since season four of The Boys. And in that, a group of heroes managed to break away from Vought control and become almost like a Starlight faction that includes a Soup who has some of the same blood manipulation powers as Victoria Newman, but can also use it to heal people and maybe as powerful as Homelander. So we'll see if that comes into play. Her name's been mentioned so far in the first couple episodes. And then finally, at the very end of season four, Homelander discovered that Soldier Boy is still alive, and Homelander now has control of the cryo tank where he's being held. So that's about where we left off.
All right, want to give a huge shout out to Carl Urban for coming in and guest starring as usual. Been 2 years since we've seen him, so it's always good to have a celebrity cameo when we can get him. So yeah, it's been 2 years since we last talked about the boys, and these shows aren't cheap. They aren't easy to make. They take a long time to shoot. Most of it takes place in Toronto, as we talked about when I was up there. We got to
Yeah.
visit some of the sites, including Vought Tower and a couple others, which is always cool. But yeah, this is the final season, the fifth season, and it's purely a creative decision. Amazon would love to keep this show going as long as possible. It's one of their top-rated original shows, but they're winding it down, and it seems like the perfect time to do so.
Yeah, I think so.
So we're starting off. We're gonna go episode by episode, instead of just talking about them, kind of stream of conscious. And the first episode is 15 inches of sheer dynamite. Great, great title for an episode. So while it's been 2 years since the show last aired, we're only a year in the timeline ahead. So Homelander is top dog. He's got the president of the United States wrapped around his finger. He's got the president mixing and making drinks for for his underlings.
Yeah.
So we start out with Starlight infiltrating a Vault shareholder meeting hosted by Homelander, and she's disguised as Firecracker, doing her best cosplay, doing a damn good job of it, I must say. Uh, so she shows everybody the Flight 37 video, and if of course everyone remembers because it was one of the biggest moments of season one, when Homelander and Queen Maeve had to abandon an entire flight full of innocent civilians and just let them all crash into the sea because PR. And so we the boys, except for Butcher. So we have Huey, Mother's Milk, and Frenchie all locked in a. Oh no, Frenchie's off with doing his kind of his own thing. But Huey and Mother's Milk are both in a concentration camp.
No, so is Frenchie.
Frenchie's down there underground, mixing Molotov cocktails so they can make their grand escape. they
Yeah.
find out they're about to be executed, and one of the best things about narrative visual fiction is a ticking clock, and that's what we have. 72 hours for Starlight, Homelander, and I mean Starlight, Butcher, and Kimiko to who can now talk, by the way, who can to go save their boys.
Yeah, it started out the first infiltration thing was great. We get to see Starlight as basically a guerrilla warrior, basically trying to sabotage. But and this series has been playing with this for a while. I thought it was very interesting that it basically doesn't matter. It
Mm.
doesn't really make a difference because there's they instantly say, oh, this is just a deep fake, and this isn't true, and it doesn't move the needle. Apparently, they're always talking about their polls and everything, and apparently it hasn't moved the needle on VOT
Fake news.
or their share price or anything. It's just all, yeah, fake news. And so even this sabotage plan that goes off perfectly, basically according to what Starlight wanted, it still doesn't really do much to take down VOT or Homelander. And it sort of reminded me of, there was a line in that series, Chernobyl, from
Oh,
a few years ago, that something about, it's something about lies and truth, and it's not that um, people will believe the lies. It's more that you tell so many lies that people no longer recognize the truth.
exactly. Which is interesting because I just started rewatching Chernobyl for the first time since it came out a couple days ago because I don't know, I just felt like watching there's it's been like it's had a resurgence for some reason Chernobyl, so it's like at the top of the charts again, so it's like
Mm.
suggested for you in my HBO app, so I threw on Chernobyl, so that's really interesting that you brought that up. But yeah, great miniseries by the
Oh,
way.
amazing series. But yeah, obviously dealing with some of these same issues of truth and lies. I mean, The Boys is dealing with a whole bunch of issues, but this is definitely one that plays into this episode. Um, and then yeah, they find Kimiko, or Butcher does, and brings her back. She's been living in the Philippines, where I guess she was sort of exiled because she kept killing too many guards in the prison camp. So they just basically deported her.
Yeah, because they can't kill her, so what are
Yeah,
you gonna do?
yeah. I think that's pretty good. Just try to get her as far away as possible. Um, I have to say, I didn't love the choice to make her speak. Especially
Mm.
because in the first episode, at least, we'll get it, the second episode is maybe a little different. It's not just that they made her speak, it's that some of the things she said didn't seem like things that Kamiko would have said. Like, I
Mm.
don't know, it just didn't sound like her voice, or at least, and no, I'm not by voice, I don't mean like the timbre and whatever. I just mean like it just didn't sound like Kimiko. So at least for that first episode. So I didn't love it at first. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. And just my brain went to this weird place where I was like, well, so the character Kimiko was born in Japan, grew up in a prison camp in the Philippines, raised by this radical guerrilla terrorist group. Would she be thinking and talking in an American accent,
Yeah, yeah,
even
I
if she
kind of
couldn't
wondered
talk?
about that too,
Yeah,
actually.
so
Yeah,
okay, so I'm not the only one
yeah.
who went there. So I
Intensive
mean,
speech therapy, though. So I guess that, yeah, I don't know. That
yeah.
explains it, I guess.
And I know the actress Karen Fukuhara was raised in Oregon or somewhere, California, or Oregon, or something like this. So,
Yeah, yeah,
like I know the character. I mean, I know the actress doesn't have an accent, but I don't know. It's just weird. It's an interesting thought experiment because I've never thought about somebody who's like deaf and dumb, or who's who can't speak. Would they, if they
yeah.
learn how to speak, would they be speaking in the accent that they grew up in or not? So
I guess
anyway,
if they're learning to speak at that time, then maybe, yeah, they would learn to speak with the American accent. But yeah, I did have the same thought actually.
any speech therapists that are watching, feel free to comment and let us know what's up.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
we have the return of Love Sausage, who's a
yeah.
whose superpower is having a really big dick, like ridiculously like 12 feet long, and he
Yeah.
beats people to death with it and chokes them to death, and he has his just desserts.
Yes. Yeah. So him and MM have had it in for a very long time, since way back to that episode of the hero gasm episode where they first meet him. And so yeah, finally, and he's obviously got it in for MM as well. He's the one that captures him at the end of season four. So it's good that yeah, in the end, MM basically just chokes him out with his own dick. Which, and look, it wouldn't be the boys without at least one soup with a disgusting power each episode. And in this case, we get the worm, or at least that's what Butcher calls him. He's this guy who just he tunnels by eating dirt and shitting it out his butt, basically. And oh man, I don't know how they keep coming up with these disgusting powers, but yeah, he basically gets them into the prison camp.
Yeah, the worm was funny too because I guess he's retired from the superhero life, and
And
he's
he's
a
a screenwriter
yeah, he's this struggling screenwriter, and
and a
it's funny.
terrible screenwriter too.
Yeah, but it is funny how because I went back and watched seasons one and two so far. I'm trying to do a full boys rewatch as we're doing this,
Mm.
and it is funny how much inside baseball there is as far as the filmmaking industry.
Yeah,
Is you have those two guys at the very beginning named Seth and Evan, the characters are, and Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg have written like everything together, and they're also executive producers on the
producers.
show.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny that like they have like pitch meetings, and as you said, they always go over like metrics and how everything is playing with focus groups and test audiences and all that shit. So yeah, it's really interesting for people in the know as far as the filmmaking industry goes. And
Yeah.
there were a couple like really obscure references. Oh yeah, yeah. The worm has a picture of him and Michael Bay. And I was watching the episode with some of my family members, and I cracked up because I was like, "Oh my God, it's Michael Bay!" And if you haven't seen like pictures of Michael Bay, he's not really a household name. I mean, he directs all the like Armageddon, Bad Boys, all the Transformers, all the like the
Yeah,
explosion
yeah. It's
stuff.
probably a household name, but maybe not a household face.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, so I was cracking up. I was like, "Oh God, it's Michael Bay!"
yeah,
And it's perfect because Worm is totally just into all the tropes and just talk about and even when he's digging the hole, he's like, okay, drive the action to the climax. And he goes into the hole. I thought that was just hilarious.
yeah. Ashley now becoming the vice president of the United States, I did not see coming.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, she has been through a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And
At
she's
least,
still obviously like very much on the edge.
yeah, she looks like so she takes Compound V and her superpower winds up being like Professor Quirrell and Voldemort in the first Harry Potter.
Yeah.
She
Except
has
it's
like
maybe
a
psychic because it can read some people's minds. Um,
yeah, I
but
couldn't
then
really
has to
figure that
tell
out.
her what the the other people are thinking because it doesn't just pop up into her own head. It's very, very confusing.
Yeah, Butcher has gone full Dark Butcher.
Yeah.
Just total cynical asshole. He's no longer the charming Cockney that we all grew to know and love in the first couple seasons. He is just hell bent on killing every soup on the planet, unleashing the anti-compound V. I forgot what they call it. It's a virus that
Yeah. Yeah.
the scientists and Frenchie were working on,
Yeah.
and so. Huey's kind of leading the resistance inside the camps, just trying to keep hope alive.
Yeah.
I forgot that
Yeah.
he
So yeah, just so they've got these camps all throughout the United States, I guess, and this
freedom camps.
freedom camps. Yeah, and they all have to wear like basically Homelander merch as their prison outfits, which I think is pretty funny. But ultimately, this episode was really about A Train, I think,
Exactly.
in my opinion. And A Train comes in for the save at the end, and I think A Train's and then ends up dying. And A Train's arc over the course of the whole series was fantastic. And the way they capped it off here was just brought home perfectly. From the very first time we see A Train in episode one of season one, where he's killing Robin, zooming past and, just obliterating Huey's girlfriend. and to this time where we see him just come in with the same blazing speed to save Huey, and then as he's taking off, he avoids a woman in the street, and that's what inevitably causes his downfall and causes him to die. But even as Homelander is basically choking him out, the look on his face and he's sort of smiling, he's finally a man who's kind of at peace with himself and his decisions. And I just thought that the whole arc of, because he was always a conflicted character from about season two on. And he dealt with that in a number of different ways. He tried to kind of go back to his roots in a very performative fashion in season, what was that, two or three or something? And he did all these other things, but I thought just the full span of his story I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, when Homelander snapped his neck and A-Train was laughing in his face, he like A-Train definitely literally got the last laugh in that
Yeah.
exchange. Like he like you said, he had made peace with himself, and just phenomenal character arc, just full circle. Uh, he could have evaded Homelander just barely, but yeah, avoiding that young woman in the street and dying, saving Huey was just perfect.
Yeah.
And Yeah, phenomenal arc for him. And these characters are more likely than not going to start dropping like flies, because we after episode 2 we only have 6 more hours of the boys total. So imagine a lot more death and destruction.
Yeah.
But so yeah, A Train, I thought his whole sequence of saving Huey and the rest of the boys while they looked like it was going to be a showdown between Butcher and Homelander, which they've been teasing since the very first episode of the series.
Yeah.
I thought that whole sequence was awesome because it was funny too, because A Train, while everything else was slowed down around him, he was just like kind of jogging, like he's like kind of bouncing up and down, showing like how fast he is.
Yeah.
Just like kind of bending Mother's Milk down, pulling the grenades out of the soldier's vest. Yeah, it was great. It was
Yeah, almost like that scene from X-Men Days of Future Past with the where whatever the speedster guy is going around and like adjusting people's glasses and doing stuff in the hyper time or whatever. Um yeah, it was kind of cool. I did yeah, no, I just yeah, I thought it was interesting and actually good that they didn't telegraph it that he was basically going to die this episode. Like so many shows, if a main character is going to die, they'll have a couple of scenes where they're like really kind of, you know, giving everything and telling about all their regrets and everything. It's kind of like telegraphing what's good. That okay, well, this character's, had a good run. They didn't do that, as you said. Like we thought it was going to be a showdown between Butcher and Homelander, and instead it ended up being A-Train's basically his episode. And I thought that was really good that it just kind of came out of nowhere, but it still really worked.
Yeah, like Game of Thrones wound up being notorious for that in the later seasons, where they would have a kind of a secondary or tertiary character have like this really emotional scene where he
Yeah,
pours out his soul to somebody, and they're
yeah,
like, oh well, he's dead.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So, and yeah, they could have had another scene of A Train and his brother just having like this heart to heart. And but yeah, came out of nowhere, and it was really surprising, but it was a great payoff for the entire A-Train character.
yeah. Yeah, so then we're into episode two because they dropped obviously two episodes at once to start the season.
And this one is called Teenage Kicks, Kix. So Butcher leads the whole squad of the reunited boys. Of course, there's tension abound because everybody hates Butcher. Butcher is never trustworthy. Kimiko and Frenchie reunite, have a lovely little sex scene. Uh, oh yeah, Huey and Annie slash Starlight also reunite after a year, and while Huey is kind of pissed that Annie never came back to save him throughout the year of being in a concentration camp, they bang, and he's totally cool with that.
Yeah. Although they do that more so she can avoid conversation,
Yeah, but I
which,
mean,
which
he's a
is
dude.
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, he's fine with
Yeah,
it, at least for that
for
moment.
now. Yeah,
Yeah. But so Butcher leads them all back to a lab in like a rundown middle school where the doctor that created the soup killing virus is still alive. And Butcher, of course, has been lying to get his own needs met, and so nobody knew about Victoria Newman's actual cause of death, which, of course, was Butcher using his chest tentacles to rip her apart.
yeah,
So, but they need a test subject because they don't know if this virus actually works or not because it's been tried on Kimiko, whose leg got desiccated, but Kimiko's power is that she can't die, so not really going to work on her. So they they go to this soup that's not really in play anymore called Rock Hard, and he's again one of the
another
gross.
disgusting soup.
Yeah, exactly. And they have this subgroup of the seven called Teenage Kicks, and they're like the like the Young Justice League, or I don't. Oh yeah, but it should be said we said this when we covered the boys last time, but we haven't read the comics or the graphic novels, so we're not that familiar with the source material.
Yeah.
But as I understand it, they've departed so much from it by this point that it doesn't really matter. So, but and we're not really comic book readers anyway, so that's why I'm having trouble relating it to. I know there's a Young Justice League. I just forgot what they were called. Oh, Teen Titans. That's what they're called. So we still find Soldier Boy locked in his ice tank cryo sleep, and Homelander's decided to move his dad in with him just while he's in cryo sleep. Uh, the whole episode basically revolves around the A story of testing this virus and trying to kill Rockhard, who's a kind of kind of a parody of the thing or the thing from Fantastic Four,
Yeah.
where he's just a rock monster, but totally gross out because he's just covered in his own jizz, which is actually like lava.
Yeah, yeah. So this guy's just stuck in a basement and is now, instead of just being this hero, he's now basically just this mountain because, yeah, he just sits there and jacks off, I guess. And every time he comes, it turns to lava that then becomes more rock. And so it just keeps building around him. Anyway,
And we're introduced to more of the how the world is these days, where a bunch of the soups are basically playing the role of ICE agents, just going around kidnapping people from their homes for posting bad memes of Homelander or good memes about Starlight. Homelander literally wants to make memes about him illegal. Anybody that insults him should be in one of these camps or just killed outright. But
yeah,
you have all these soups running around, posting their captures on TikTok, hawking energy drinks, and just just really dark shit, but with this veneer of just, I guess, millennial blase disregard for the horrors of reality as long as they can get views.
yeah, yeah,
Anyway, yeah, the Starlighters, the people that follow Starlight, obviously, are like the resistance is just being completely shut down. New camps are opening all over the place. Sleeper cells of resistance fighters and are just almost at zero now. And by the end of the episode, I believe they say that the very last sleeper cell that they know of has been shut down. So yeah, it's getting worse and worse for our heroes.
yeah.
And
Although I'm assuming that doesn't include the Gen V group, because they mentioned them, Murray Murrow, and so I think they're still out there somewhere. But,
Okay. Martin, you've watched all of Gen V. I have
yeah,
not. I'm not caught
yeah,
up on the Boys extended universe. But so I didn't know it was gonna play into the main series as much as it is, but it's turning into like a Marvel type thing where you need to watch everything. So I'm gonna go back and rewatch it. But as I
yeah.
understand it, was A Train kind of a big part of Gen V as far as the main cast goes?
No, he shows up actually at the very end.
Oh,
More in the second season of Gen V, the person who's more a bigger player actually is Sister Sage.
okay.
who was kind of playing a double game where she was also trying to support this guy, Dr. Godolkin, who is like 100 years old and whatever, and was basically trying to come back to life and he could control people's minds. That was his power. And Sister Sage was kind of with him. Um, and he was the kind of the big main antagonist of that second season. But then, so without giving away too many spoilers, but the heroes from that season are out there and kind of became like a Starlighter faction, and
Mm,
one of them is supposedly very, very powerful. So I'm sure she'll come in at some point in this season. Because I doubt they'll do more seasons of this if this is the last season of the boys. I don't know if they're
mm,
done with Gen V, but I'm guessing they would be.
mm. Okay. So there, Homelander, because so Homelander's number two is basically a combination of the Deep and Black Noir, who are just completely incompetent. Uh,
Yeah,
I
Black Noir too. Yeah,
yeah,
it's not even the original Black
exactly.
Noir. Yeah, it's this actor who's got superpowers.
And I just love the Deep. I have from the very first season. Like I don't like love him as a character, but every
Yeah,
time he pops up, I love that he is there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's just so cowardly, so inept, and
Yeah, such an idiot.
so yeah, just so fucking stupid. Um, so the fact that the Deep and Black Noir keep failing Homelander at every turn, not being able to find Starlight or Butcher or any of the boys, Homelander decides to wake his pops up, and Soldier Boy is out of cryo sleep. And of course, the last time we saw those two together, they were fighting to the death. And even though neither of them died, because they're pretty much equally matched. And Soldier Boy is, of course, the Captain America parody to Homelander's Superman parody. And I love Soldier Boy too. He just comes up with the most creative insults, and they're all kind of like homophobic while at the same time being just like completely
Yeah,
outdated.
as Huey points out, they're all kind of about guys sucking each other's dicks. So it's like, what's that all about?
Yeah, like he calls Huey's mouth a cum bucket, and it's just
Yeah.
like line after line after line. Every and the way the Jensen Ackles, the actor, delivers it, because he affects this really deep, like almost kind of Batman-esque voice. He's like, "You shut your cum bucket." It just cracks me up every time. And so, Soldier Boy is tasked by Homelander to go find the virus in order to like redeem his reputation, become like top dog again, and uh they still have Rock Hard. I forgot what the other soup's name was, and then the Princess of the Crows, who kind of ingratiates herself with Mother's Milk because she's
Countess
just
Crow. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Countess Crow, which reminded me of the late um oh Catherine
Oh, Catherine O'Hara.
yeah, in Schitt's Creek,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, Queen of the Crows.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Countess Crow, played by a girl who's best known for the Never Have I Ever series, which is yeah, a totally different kind of show. So interesting.
and yeah, there's also this cat soup who coughs up hairballs and ate all of the of ate all of her crows.
Yeah, and shits in the litter box and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah,
Just, I'm glad in all this dark shit it still retains its humor.
yeah.
But so okay, so they all get the scientists there in Rockhard's basement, and they wind up killing three, seemingly four soups. But Deep is there. He's okay, so the boys escape. We're not quite sure. It seems like Mother's Milk is having kind of a weird reaction. to this whole thing. Not sure if that he's just uncomfortable with everybody dying in such a painful way in that basement, or if there's something else going on with him. But so Huey, Frenchie, and Mother's Milk all put gas masks on and escape the basement while Rockhard and the other soups die in the basement. So we know the virus is extremely effective. Deep is outside trying to contain the situation with the local authorities, but he can't even do that, right? So Homelander shows up. Homelander's devastated that that his dad, Soldier Boy, is dead, and tells Deep to fuck off. Deep pisses his pants, but he was just swimming. And so we end episode 2 with Soldier Boy sitting up in his body bag, so
Yeah,
he's not dead, which I was stoked on because I
pulling an Undertaker. Yeah,
yeah, I did not want that to be the end of Soldier Boy, and I kind of figured it wouldn't be because that'd be kind of an ignominious way for such a built-up character
yeah,
to go out. And it always goes out with a really funny song, and in this case, it was Tub Thumping.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
Chumbawamba. I get knocked down, but I get up again. Right,
yeah,
right as
yeah,
Soldier Boy hops up. So
yeah. That's pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, The Boys has never been very subtle in its commentary on real life events, and a lot of this is obviously a nod to, as you've mentioned, some of ICE's heavy-handed tactics recently. I really liked though how the twist on that was that these regional soups who they were in charge of the regions and rounding up the Starlighters, that
Mhm.
they've kind of twisted that in with these young influencer types who are basically all living in like a Vought content factory house. And just all that I thought was just really funny and really well done. Um, I will say that Soldier Boy throughout this series has been such a wild card.
Mhm.
And having him survive the virus at the very end of this episode, I think is great because it gives us two things, right? First of all, it means that the virus probably won't kill Homelander.
Yeah.
So we're still gonna have to find something if Homelander is gonna be offed by the end of the season. Um, but also now Soldier Boy will probably blame Homelander because Homelander didn't tell him about the virus. So he'll probably blame him for using him as a guinea pig. And so once again, he's going to be a wild card, and who knows what side Soldier Boy is going to be on when he actually gets out of this body bag, right? Like he still obviously thinks that Butcher betrayed him, but now he's probably also going to think that Homelander betrayed him. So he's just going to be this crazy enigma piece on the chessboard, and so I think that's great that it just gives us this wild card to that they're going to play around with for the rest of the season. Um, because he's never really been a character who's been on anybody's side really except his own anyway. But now, especially after this, everybody in his mind has betrayed him, and he still thinks he's the most powerful super around. So that'll be interesting. Um,
But we don't even know what kind of state he's going to be in after being
that's
infected.
true. That's true. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it
So he's
obviously,
alive, but we don't know what that means. Yeah,
right, because he obviously was extremely affected by it. I mean, he appeared to be dead.
yeah,
He had the same like almost looked like radiation poisoning type burns, like blistering burns all over his skin. So we don't know if he's going to be in a right mental state, if he's going to be like a zombie-fied
yeah,
suit. We have no clue whatsoever as to whether he's still going to have his mental faculties, if he's going to be as powerful, maybe more powerful since he almost died, and
yeah.
uh,
Or maybe he won't have any power. Maybe the virus kills the V in his bloodstream. Who knows?
yeah. So that's going to be really interesting road to go down.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're about to make another point though.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like as I mentioned in the first when we were talking about the first episode, Kimiko's speaking in this one didn't jar me as much as in the first episode, and so I'm not quite sure if that was just that I'm getting used to it, or if they did a better job of finding her voice. But I think it's maybe the latter. I think things she said and the fact that she wasn't always just speaking instantly, she was still at times using her signing and not
Mm.
speaking. I think that and that's better for her character too, because Karen Fukuhara was just always such a great actress, just with her expressive facial, what she did with her expressions.
Mhm.
Um, and so that, as I said, I didn't love the speaking, but I appreciated it more in this episode. Um, I think there is, when you were talking about Huey and Starlight, I think there is something there that's going to be unexplored. Like they're going to have another fight at some point. They've had a few over the course of the series, but because Starlight is clearly doesn't want to talk about stuff, and it seems that she's done some things over the past year since season four that she's not proud of, and she's kind of more becoming like Butcher. She's agreeing with Butcher a lot more when they're
Mm.
talking about things. I think that's going to be an interesting subplot to follow throughout this season. Um, it's kind of like where Starlight's moral meter lands by the end of this season, because it seems like she's kind of conflicted at this point.
Yeah, definitely. And she is, again, it's another trope that the boys is turning on its head, because usually in these type of situations it's the guy who clams up and
Yeah.
just wants to bang, and he's just
Yeah. Yeah.
so so which the boys has always been great at since day one of turning all these tropes on their heads. And so yeah, Starlight is definitely hiding a lot, and I'm sure she feels a little guilt for not being able to save Huey. But Huey's a team player. He knows what the score is. He's not being a little bitch about it. He's just like, first like, where were you? But at the end he's like, well, no, I get it. Like
Yeah.
it's bigger than those two. So yeah,
Yeah.
Huey is he's
But
so
but
grown
there
up.
it is sort of an open question about why exactly she didn't save him, because they did kind of gloss over it even in the first episode from this season, where I think Kimiko asks her at some point, and basically she said, "Oh well, I thought he was safest there." But it kind of seemed like a glib answer that wasn't entirely the truth.
Mm,
She had had the view of the camp where she said she took the photos doing a flyby herself. Oh, that was one thing. Yeah, at the end of season four, for anybody who didn't remember, she basically can use her powers to essentially fly now. Um, but um, but it doesn't seem like she was in. So maybe there's something else that she's kind of hiding about why exactly she didn't break Huey out. Maybe she had some ulterior motive for wanting them to still stay in that camp. Maybe I don't know what it was. So I think there's going to be more that we'll find out about Starlight, and maybe more about what she was doing in that intervening time in that year. Although we do know from some other things, including Gen V, that she's been going around trying to help all these other groups.
mm,
Um, but yeah, why exactly she kind of abandoned Frenchie, and Huey is a little unclear.
mm. One thing I noticed about watching last night's episodes, and then kind of also watching the early seasons, is that if the show had always been this tone, I I'm not sure I would have tuned in, honestly. I
Mm.
might have, just because of the violence and the absurdity of it all, but it just used to be so much more fun. And
Right. Yeah.
but so did living in America. So I guess
Yeah.
I guess there's a trend here, and
Yeah.
it's the boys over 5 seasons has gone from making fun of the absurdity of the state of American politics to reflecting it. So,
Yeah, well, that's a very good way to put it. Yeah. Yeah. And also just I think it's the final season, and
oh yeah, yeah.
so things are gonna come to a head, and so in a way they've almost got to get more serious about some of these things. Um, but no, I think that's a very good point about yeah. parroting rather than reflecting the current situation in the world. And that's obviously very clear with a lot of the stuff they're doing in terms of the camps. And as I said, they've never been really all that subtle about all these these commentaries on real life events. Some of those camps are very clearly a nod to like the alligator Alcatraz and all that kind of stuff that's going on currently in the United States. Um, but so that's basically the first two episodes. So we've got six more episodes coming up. Um, and it seems like there's a few players that we haven't really seen yet. Um, for me, notably Ryan.
Yeah.
Such a huge part of seasons three and four. And
I
he
had to
has,
look up if he was still alive because because again it's been 2 years and I haven't rewatched the entire series. I was like, wait, nothing happened to Ryan, right? There's a couple of characters I had to look up because I was like, I know Noir died, but I totally forgot about him being replaced by the actor and that whole plot.
right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, but I mean Ryan I think is probably the most significant just because as I said he was the most significant in those two seasons. Um and the last time we saw him was basically in that pivotal scene where he gets mad and kills Grace Mallory
Mm.
and then walks out. And it's that convinces Butcher basically to embrace his darker side. I mean, he's always had a dark side, but his real like his V inspired really dark side. And so that he's a big player that we haven't seen yet. That's going to have to reappear at some point. Um, are there any others out there that might show up? Like Maeve, I guess, is
Maeve,
technically still alive, right?
yeah,
Uh,
she just depowered and living her best life with her
is she
girlfriend.
fully depowered though? I mean, you never know in this show, right? Like,
That's what they heavily implied, but yeah, we're not like completely confirmed on that. It's
yeah,
just,
yeah.
but they
And
did
then
mention her.
Victoria Newman's daughter,
Yeah, little
um,
Zoe.
yeah, little Zoe with the Medusa snakes or whatever. We did see her in season two of Gen V, and but sort of like they were to her father, they'd kind of lied to her and said that it was Homelander who had killed her mom. So it'll be interesting to see if she shows up again. And she's also kind of friends with Ryan. So those two and Maeve, I think, are maybe the only two main players aside from the Gen V people. Are there any others that we haven't seen yet that might come back in this final season?
Not that come to mind now.
Yeah.
But this being the final season, I've compiled a last minute list of 10 characters, and we're gonna go through them and predict whether they are alive or dead at the end of
Yeah.
the season slash series. And
And
I'll keep
this is just off the top of our heads. I haven't thought about this at all because you just sprung this on us at the beginning, right before we started recording. So
Yeah, I just thought it was a good time to do it since we're two episodes in. We kind of see a little bit of where the plot line's going.
yeah.
And yeah, so we're just gonna go through and I'll keep a written tally of these and we can see who's the most right when the series comes to an end in 6 weeks. So Butcher, alive or dead?
Oh, I think he's done for.
Yeah.
I don't see how he survives this.
Yeah, me too. Huey.
Huey, I think, actually will survive.
Okay. I
How
think
about
so
you?
too.
Yeah, okay.
Mother's milk.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Um, I'm not sure if MM's gonna survive, actually.
Okay, because I mean he does still have a family out there. So you're going with dead?
Yeah, I think so, just because his character, no, maybe he will survive, but maybe he'll walk away before the end, and maybe that'll make him survive. Because it seems like he's kind of lost faith in all of this.
Hmm.
So yeah. Okay, I'll revise that. I'll say he'll survive, but it's because he walks away.
Alive. Final answer. All right. I'll also say that Mother's Milk will make it out alive. All right, I'm just doing all the boys first. So,
Yeah.
Frenchie.
Uh, I have this awful feeling that one of Frenchie or Kimiko is gonna die, and I'm just not sure which one. So I'll say it's Frenchie. I'll say
Okay.
Frenchie dies.
Shit. Yeah, I think Frenchie's gone a goner too. So, Starlight.
I wouldn't have thought this until these first two episodes, but I think Starlight might die
Okay,
because,
interesting.
in a way, the whole series has kind of put her up as the anti-Homelander
Hmm.
in terms of the superpowered people.
Yeah,
And so I think, and so this will give it away. I think maybe she's a sacrifice by the end.
interesting. Okay, I'll put her as alive, so that's our first divergence.
Okay.
And Kimiko. You
Well,
said,
yeah, as I said, I think it'll be one or the other. And so I think maybe Kimiko will survive.
all right, I think Frenchie and Kimiko are both gonna like die in each other's arms or some
Oh, damn.
random like
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
But the whole virus thing is going to be interesting because it's already been tried on Kimiko. So I don't know why they're so worried about her. If
Well, but that's only because they cut off her leg before it could spread to her whole body.
true, true. Yeah, I forgot about that part.
So,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
she could just regrow her legs. So that worked out all right.
Yeah. Right. Okay. All right. Homelander.
I, uh, I mean, it really depends on how dark they want to go
Yeah.
with this series.
Exactly.
Um, but I think they'll leave us with a little bit of hope, and I think Homelander will die.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Otherwise, just like goddamn.
Yeah.
Otherwise, goddamn.
Yeah.
All right, how about the deep?
Um, I think the Deep's gonna survive just because in a way it's he's just more pathetic as this guy who lives and is just like everybody hates him and he's just so I think he's gonna survive.
I would, yeah, I would love to agree with you, but I'm gonna say he dies.
Okay.
All right, how about Ryan?
Oof. I think Ryan will. Hmm. No, I think maybe Ryan will die.
Okay. What about the affirmation Queen Maeve?
Maybe he'll survive.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think she's gonna make like a cameo in one episode. Maybe whether it's to save her girlfriend
Oh, yeah.
or maybe to like get between Homelander and the boys if they're in a tight spot and make an escape because Maeve and Homelander do have that past
Yeah, that's true.
and Homelander is so susceptible to his emotions even though
Yeah.
he loves to pretend that he's not. So I think Maeve's gonna die, but it's gonna be a heroic death.
Okay. Yeah.
And last, Ashley.
Oh, damn. Uh, at this point, Ashley might end up president. Like she's just gonna keep failing upwards. So I think Ashley's somehow gonna survive all this, even though now she's a soup. So maybe that's not quite right, but somehow I think she's gonna survive.
Okay, I think she's either gonna get killed by Homelander or get driven so crazy by the back of her head that she's gonna like jump off a building or something. So I have her as dead. All right,
Uh,
so those do you want to any more characters that you feel like are worthy of this list, or you think that's good?
no, I think that's pretty much most of them, right? Yeah. No, I don't think. Well, I guess Soldier Boy would be the other one. Um,
Oh, yeah.
whether or not he survives. Um, and I don't think he does, just because I think he's sort of this anachronism in the world that's, as I said, is sort of a wild card.
Mm,
So I think he's more. I mean, he's a great character, But
Mhm.
in terms of what happens, I think he's more of a plot device than anything else. So I'm not sure he'll survive.
Yeah, I agree. And then like there's a bunch of tertiary characters. Like, do we really care if like Firecracker or Nor or any of those?
No, no,
Yeah, yeah.
no.
All right, so we started out pretty in sync, but we had some divergences the further we got down the line. So that'll be interesting. As I'll keep track of these. We can mark them off as they go, and we'll see how the season shakes out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. With our Deadpool basically that we've got
Yeah,
going on
pretty
here.
much. But yeah, it seems like it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, and that's those are always the best stories
Yeah,
when it seems like the good guys, and who are the good guys at this point, like maybe just Huey.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
But yeah, that's the world of the boys, and let's hope there can be some a little bit of divergence between their world and our world, and hope they don't get more and more similar until there is the singularity. But so if yeah, if we're all still alive by next Wednesday, we'll be watching episode 3, and we'll record on Thursday and have this out to you by next Friday, hopefully. Until then, for Butcher, Martin Cook, I'm Zach Miller, and we'll see you next week on the Unsolicited Film Reviews podcast.
bye everyone.